Hello, everyone. This is Sarah Zakaria, Associate Director of Alumni Relations at the University of San Diego. I'm excited to have you join us today for our Young Alumni Network webinar, Best Interview and Career Tips for Recent Graduates and Young Alumni, with alumna Danielle Hashem. The USD Alumni Network is an official affinity group of the USD Alumni Association, dedicated to providing the professional development and social networking opportunities for USD alumni who graduated within the last 10 years and are under 35 years old. First, I would like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us this afternoon. Before we begin, please be mindful that today's webinar is being recorded. Access to the replay of the webinar will be found on the USD Alumni website and the University of San Diego YouTube channel about 1 month from today. So if you need to step away from the webinar and are interested in viewing it at a later time, the archived broadcast will be posted soon. On your screen is a control panel with the chat area where you're able to ask questions. Questions are very welcomed, and Danielle is looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So please submit your questions and we will answer as many as time allows. If you experience technical difficulties, please submit your concerns via the chat area. In the event that we all experience technical difficulties during today's webinar, we will attempt to resolve the issue as soon as possible. If we are unable to do so, we will of integrated marketing, communication, and public relations experience. She has also worked as a writer for various industries, including defense, staffing, technology, energy, and medical device companies. Danielle graduated from USD in 2005 with a bachelor's degree in communication studies and a minor in business administration. Currently, she volunteers as a mentor for the San Diego chapter of the Public Relations Society of America. We now turn the time over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for having me here. As Sarah mentioned, I graduated in 2005, and pretty much immediately after graduating, I entered into the workforce. So before I go into my presentation, I just want to give a little bit of my background and share that with you. Go to the next slide. Okay. So as far as my background, as I said, in 2005, my first job outside of USD, I actually accepted as an internship program with a public relations firm named Bailey Gardner. They have since rebranded themselves and they are known as the Idea brand. For those of you located in San Diego, you may know they are pretty much tied to the Del Mar racetrack. They are the PR firm that does all of the media relations and PR for the track. I started as an intern with them. I worked with them for part-time, and then they hired me on as a part-time employee. And then later in 2005, I left Bailey Gardner to work for a staffing service. I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties. I joined a staffing service, on-call employee solutions. I actually went and registered myself to be a candidate so they could place me with a company, and they ended up liking me so much that they hired me internally. I entered as a marketing coordinator and I left there as a marketing specialist. Some of the items I did, I worked for them as I handled all of their logistics and event planning for job fairs, trade shows, customer events, creating marketing collateral internally and externally, email campaigns, newsletters, and working with a third-party vendor for website updates. I then left there in 2008 to kind of move on into my career, and I ended up as a marketing specialist for Sirit, an RFID company. They were based in Canada, and unfortunately in 2008, that's when the recession started. So I worked there for 4 months and then was unfortunately laid off at 25 years old. But I got back up on my feet. I was definitely looking for jobs every single day for 3 solid months. And then I landed at Northrop Grumman. I was there from 2008 to 2013. When I started there, I was in their business development area and I was a marketing communications coordinator. And I basically managed their trade show budget for an entire business unit, and I help support staffing at trade shows. I did that position for a year, and then I moved into a marketing communications lead for an $800 million company, $800 million program for our Air Force customer. And I wore very many hats in that position, and I essentially led all the logistics and planning for 3 very high-level aircraft rollouts that were presented to the Air Force. I also wrote several award nominations for both internal awards and external awards, one being specifically for Aviation Weekly. And then I coordinated with our marketing communications and PR team regarding press releases and articles on that program that were written and distributed. I did that position for about a year and a half, and then I moved over into internal communications, where I was an executive and employee communications representative. And in that role, I still managed events, but more from an internal perspective and more an executive perspective. So putting together leadership meetings, town halls, symposiums, putting together talking points and speeches for executives, and then of course working with HR for organizational announcements and internal newsletters and intranets and whatnot. I was there for about 5 years and kind of got to the point where I needed to move on to the next area of my career. At that point, I was looking to move into a different area of communications to build my career. So I chose to go to Solar Turbines. They are a subsidiary of Caterpillar. And in that position, as a senior communications specialist, my work focused more on employee relations and community relations, trying to build up some experience in that area. I was there for a short amount of time and realized that really wasn't for me. I'm really more of an integrated marketing person. So in early 2014, I left and I ended up where I currently am today, which is CareFusion. I'm a senior marketing specialist. I'm in their infusion business unit, and I manage all the events and logistics for our trade shows, attendance at our annual sales meeting, and then managing our marketing databases. We have 3 different databases, creating and determining the distribution for both internal and external newsletters, and then most recently a blog portal. Within the medical industry, this has been a little bit of a shakeup, but we were end of 2014, it was announced that Becton Dickinson was acquiring us, so the deal is actually going to close sometime this month. So in the next few weeks, I will still be in the same position and be with the exact same company, doing the same thing every day. I will just now be a Becton Dickinson employee as CareFusion. So before all of that goes away, I wanted to share a little bit about CareFusion and part of the reason why I decided to apply to this company, and I wanted to use it as an example of something to look for in a company when you're trying to figure out where to go, who to interview with. This is CareFusion's mission statement. At CareFusion, we are united in our vision to improve the safety and lower the cost of healthcare for generations to come. Our worldwide employees are passionate about healthcare and helping those that deliver it, from the hospital pharmacy to the nursing floor, the operating room to the patient bedside. And I use this as an example because when I was actually interviewing with them, I was pretty much asked why I felt I deserved to work at CareFusion and how this mission statement particularly resonated with me. And that's usually a typical question that you'll get during an interview, and usually one of the early questions that recruiters will ask you to weed out how serious you are about being at their company. So with that, I do want to show an example of their vision video. So Sarah, if you could please go to that. Okay, so Sarah sent out both the links. So the first link is the vision video I was referencing, and that pretty much, I was referencing that as an example because it really hones in on what CareFusion's specific culture is and kind of where they play in the medical industry. And coincidentally, that looping video is played in the lobby of the building I work in and the lobby of the building at headquarters. So when I went to interview, I automatically knew the purpose and the reason as to why they were showing that interview, and that kind of triggered my mind to make sure I asked a question about that when I met with them. So that was pretty much their external mission statement. Their internal mission statement I wanted to use as an example as well because Most companies have this. CareFusion refers to their employees as life changers, and they say life changers find innovative ways to improve our customers' ability to provide healthcare to their patients. One way is our search for bold and inspired employees across the globe. Are you ready to change lives? And again, I'm referencing this because I was specifically asked in my interview how I view myself as a life changer and what I could bring to not only the medical industry, but what I could bring to help to CareFusion as far as to help them improve the cost of healthcare and change lives and help CareFusion play in that. And then another reason I'm referencing it is because this internal campaign is pretty much plastered on the walls everywhere. So in addition to that vision video, there were placards and posters and pop-up banners of the faces of many of the employees that they feature as a life changer. And now that I've been with the company for a little bit of time, I've attended about 5 town halls, and the CEO begins every single town hall featuring a new life changer video. So it definitely, this is a perfect example of embodying the culture of a company. So I wanted to highlight it because when trying to find the right place to interview and apply to, you don't just want to be selecting employers willy-nilly. That will definitely come across. You really want to take the time to find a company that resonates with you and you really see where you can work. So once I read both of these mission statements and saw both of these videos, it got me naturally excited, and then that just pretty much genuinely came through in my preparation for the interview. So with that, I want to go into our next steps of preparing for an interview, the components for selling yourself. Once you've submitted your resume and you get that call back from the recruiter, usually they'll give you a particular window of when they can schedule with you. My best recommendation of that is to work within their schedule. Try to get back to them as quickly as you can, whether it's a phone call or an email. In our day and age of technology, with everything moving so quickly, if you wait more than 12 to 24 hours to get back to a recruiter, chances are they've taken that as you are not interested or not serious, and they've already moved on to another person to interview. So definitely reply back right away and try to work with their schedule. If you already know that you have certain constraints, if you have a job you're trying to leave or it's not flexible for you to leave in the middle of the day to interview, let the recruiter know that up front, but still offer other instances of where you can meet with them, whether it's early in the morning before your work schedule starts or at the end of the day or even on the weekend if possible. If a company is extremely interested in you, they will take the time to be flexible. The RFID company I worked for in 2008, I was unable to leave my current job in the middle of the day to interview with them. So I actually had 3 interviews with them at 7 o'clock at night. And they did that because they liked my experience and they wanted me on their team. So if a company really likes you, they will make that effort. In getting yourself together for the interview, prepare, learn everything you can about the company. It's not just about memorizing your resume. It's soaking up everything and anything you can to understand the goals, the vision, and the mission of the company. And that's why I use both of those examples from CareFusion. Go in there, just dive into it, get lost in their resume, learn it all. Even if you have to go through their job search function, learn about the different jobs and opportunities they're interviewing for. Go into their area about what they offer to their current employees. Just try to soak it up. If this is a place you want to work, you need to embody that culture. As far as putting together examples for the interview, rack your brain. Go through a list of any type of real world example you can use, whether that's from a class you've taken, volunteer efforts, a part-time job, an internship, anything you can use as a real world example. Write it down, study it, practice it, remember it, and use it. And then practice, practice, practice. You always want to go into an interview being prepared. I would suggest practicing in front of family members, friends. If you're not comfortable with that, lock yourself in a bathroom, practice in front of the mirror. And it's not just about memorizing what you're going to say and perfecting that, but also paying attention to your body language, your nonverbals. If you're someone that gets nervous, pay attention to your nervous habits. Try to just hone it in and present yourself as a package with a nice bow around it. In addition to your resume, you also want to put together a portfolio of any type of work you've done. Depending on the industry and the field you're in, will be specific to what they're looking for in the portfolio. And if you don't have something present with you, 9 times out of 10, somewhere during that interview, they will ask you to send representations of your work. So it's better to be prepared beforehand than having to go home and scramble at the end. On top of that, you definitely want to be professional. I have 2 images here of a male and a female in a suit. Definitely wear a suit to every single interview you go to, even if you have made it all the way to the end and every single time you've been interviewed, the person on the other side of the table has been in jeans and a tank top and flip-flops. It doesn't matter. They work there. They're the ones who's going to be deciding whether you're there to join their team or not. You still need to present a professional manner of yourself. So always wear a suit. When you walk into the lobby, be very mindful of how you're acting, how you're coming across, and others within that same area. I highly recommend leaving your phone in the car. There's no reason for you to check in and sit down and automatically be playing on your phone or texting or emailing friends. You need to allow yourself to calm down, get in the zone, and focus on what you need to do, which is sell yourself. And then also pay attention to what's going on around you. A lot of hiring managers and teams will send out teammates to kind of circle the lobby, drive by, kind of get a predisposition, I guess, of the candidate that's going to be coming in and interviewing them. I actually was very naive to that until I worked at the staffing service. I learned that, our staffing firm did that. A lot of clients do that. And then when I started interviewing at other companies, I paid attention to that and I noticed that other companies do it as well. So be mindful of that. You definitely want to be friendly to the receptionist and those around you, but you don't want to become chatty Cathy and strike up a conversation to make a friendship with the person also there waiting for another interview. You want to be careful of that because they could be there interviewing against you. They could be interviewing to be a manager or a teammate in a different department. But at the end of the day, when you're there to interview, people are looking out for themselves. So you don't want to do anything that could cause harm to while you're there. Another thing to prepare for before you go and as you're putting together your resume and practicing, put down a list of questions. Your questions can range anywhere from the expectation of the hiring manager, the personality of the team, to the company culture, or even the leadership of the CEO or the VP of the company. Understand how the company works. Recruiters are usually very disappointed when they go through an entire interview and the person on the other side of the table has not one single question to ask. It makes them think you just want a job anywhere, and it doesn't matter where you are. And that kind of puts recruiters off. So really take the time to develop a list of questions about the company, about the position, what you're going to be doing. And even if you have questions after you interview, usually the recruiter allows you to email them with that information. Present yourself accurately. You definitely want to sell yourself and your skills, but you don't want to overcompensate and be inaccurate about anything else. Because if you do, if you do that and you get hired, it will come out within your first 30 days of being hired. After your interview, follow up immediately. Typically, during an interview, everyone will give you a business card if you have any questions. If they don't, you can always get their contact information from the recruiter. I highly suggest after your interview is done, go home and send individual thank you emails to every single person you interviewed with that day. Even if you've been back and forth with the recruiter 10 times in the last week, include the recruiter as well. When after candidates are interviewed, all of those who have interviewed them usually meet at some point before end of business that day to compare notes, and it's really to compare if you were consistent in your presentation, if you asked similar questions, um, what they thought about your personality, if they thought you'd be a good fit. And if by then you've sent a follow-up email and it's been a very generic email to all of them, they will know that. So when you follow up, try to hone in on something specific with each person that you enjoyed chatting about. It'll show that you've taken the time, you were present, you were listening, and it'll help you stand out. And then as far as offer letter and salary negotiations, typically you don't really want to discuss your salary negotiations until you're being offered the position. A lot of times up front, the recruiter will ask what your range is. It's definitely okay to give them a range, but I would highly recommend steering away from giving them a particular number. I made that mistake myself a couple years ago. I was one of two candidates for a position, and the chief marketing officer asked me the salary. And instead of giving a range, I gave a number, and he specifically told me that number was too high. And at the end of the day, I didn't get that position. And I know it's because I didn't handle that situation properly. So in the beginning, always give a range. And then when you get down to the specific offer, then you can start negotiating actual salary numbers. Now, once you're hired and you're a new employee, what do you need to focus on? Well, you should definitely jump in right away. You're new. It doesn't matter how much experience you have or whether you're fresh out of grad school or undergrad. You need to learn everything and anything there is to know about the company, the position, the work you're going to be doing. So figure out every which way to jump in. Shadow team members and attend every meeting possible. My first day at CareFusion, I walked into that door having zero knowledge of any type of medical information, medical background, and I had probably 5 meetings on my first day. And it was overwhelming, but it was good that I was forced into those meetings because they had an expectation of me to hit the ground running because of my experience, but they also had the expectation of me to get in there and learn because I showed that I wanted to be there. Also, some companies will follow a training schedule provided, some companies may not. I've worked at places where the first 2 weeks it's a very structured training, and I've worked at other places where they give you your computer and your desk and you're kind of left to figure it out. Either way, figure out a way to get involved, take notes, study outside of work, ask questions, schedule meetings with your teammates, meet with your manager. Just try to figure out where you fit in all of this and how it can benefit you. I already stated, take the initiative on everything, look for ways to get involved. And also, this is a tidbit I learned when I was at the staffing service. Normally, your first 90 days, no matter where you are, is considered probationary period. Most employers communicate this, but not every employer does. So definitely keep in mind that when you're new, no matter how much experience you have, you are definitely observed, even right down to how much you are picking up your cell phone every day or versus answering emails or being present in meetings. So always keep that in the back of your head. And also keep in mind, the interview was the time for you to sell yourself. So now it's time for you to prove it. And they're going to be paying attention to that. Most companies realize that there is a particular learning curve, especially if you're fresh out of college or a grad program or you have limited work experience. They understand that there's a learning curve and there's going to take some ramp up and some time to get involved. But that only goes so far. And when you're 6 months into a position, you can no longer be staying. You're new and you don't know. So that's why I say understand that you're heavily observed when it comes to that. And then also, when you give suggestions and offer new ideas, do it within the particular scope of where you are in your position, the department, and the company. Um, you don't want to walk in there acting like all your ideas are fantastic and they'll fix all of their problems. But if you're noticing a certain pattern of how they do business or a certain problem the department's continues to experience, and you have an offering of how to fix that, suggest it. They hired you for a reason, and so now is your time to show how you can help them. Now moving on into career level advancement. This is kind of just ballpark areas, and it usually depends and varies on where you are, but typically now entry level is considered anywhere between 1 to 5 years of experience. That also depends if you have a master's degree to back that up. Mid-level is usually about 7 to 10 years. Expert level is over 10 years of experience in your particular field or industry, and it usually has to be consistent. And then senior and executive level is 15 plus years, and that also includes being involved in some kind of external organization, being a board on something, being a mentor, and then having additional degrees and whatnot. So now career advancement, how do you move from entry level to expert? Well, when you are entry level, you are going to encounter all kinds of obstacles. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you are in life, how much experience you have, all new employees have to start at the bottom and work their way up. So if you just go in to that job with the mindset of that and being open to that and understanding that there are going to be obstacles and frustrations, but it's okay, that's what everyone goes through, you'll be fine. Next, you want to offer ideas and new suggestions, but you don't want to act like a know-it-all. If you come across as a know-it-all in an entry-level position, that is probably the clear way to get a manager frustrated with you, especially if you are straight out of school or entirely new to an industry and have no knowledge of it all. So, don't overcompensate. Understand where you are as a fish in this pond. Next, you want to make sure you respect everybody. You could be going in as an entry level person, and you could have someone who's your parents' age being your manager, or you may have to manage someone older than you, or you may be managed by someone younger than you. But at the end of the day, you need to respect everyone because you don't know who you're going to be working with or interacting with. And as an example, if you end up going back to view CareFusion's vision video, there are actually 2 employees in that video who I work very close with every single day. One of them who is specifically on my marketing team, and I didn't even know that until the first day. So at the end of the day, you don't know who you're going to be interacting with, so just always remember respect. Accept projects, challenges, and tasks to learn. Don't ever say no to a project or I don't know or I don't think I can do that. If you automatically come across with that thought process or that attitude, they're going to think you can't hack it and they're going to reconsider the whole reason and purpose as to actually why they hired you. So definitely keep an open mind to being involved and say yes as much as you can when it comes to projects. Definitely do not act entitled. This is something I'm constantly hearing from hiring managers of people who are new to the workforce. They're coming in acting entitled and thinking that they get the same, they have the same expectations and workload as someone who's been there for a while and earned it, and that's causing problems. So it goes back into the accept projects, challenges, and tasks. Say yes to everything. Don't say no. Don't ever think you're better or don't ever think you're entitled, because that's the quickest way to get you booted out of a company. Seek out a mentor. I have done this several times in my career. It could be internally within the company. It could be externally as far as joining an organization. PRSA, the organization I've been involved in, I have used that specifically as a candidate and specifically as mentoring people. So if you're kind of stuck and you're not sure how to navigate the waters, definitely look into this. It will only help you grow as a person, both professionally and personally. And then don't forget to ask for help. Like I mentioned earlier, when employers hire you and they know you have little experience or not much background on the industry, they expect a learning curve and they do expect a certain amount of questions. So if they have meetings with you once a week and you come in there and you don't have a single question, they're going to be wondering, how is that possible? Are you really not paying attention? And it's okay to ask questions. Asking questions shows that you're inquisitive, you're trying to figure it out, and that you don't understand anything and you're falling into the expectations. So, a lot of people are afraid to ask for help. They think it shows weakness, but it really actually shows strength. So, just keep that in the back of your mind. And then now, once you get to expert level, what are some issues you come across? And as I said earlier, even if you're an expert, you're joining a new company like myself. I had 10 years of experience, walked into CareFusion, and have zero medical background. So I was dealing with that obstacle, but then I'm also dealing with the obstacle of going into this new workforce, this new industry, and I'm working with teammates who have over 20 years of experience. Maybe not 20 years of experience, particularly with CareFusion, but over 20 years of experience with CareFusion products. Half the people on my team are clinicians, nurses who worked at the bedside, pharmacists by trade. They've been in the medical industry for probably 25 years, and they have now decided to work on the business side of it. So not only am I trying to get up to speed on the company and the culture and where I fit into it, I'm trying to understand how I can work alongside of these people. So same concept, just different obstacle. And then once you are within a certain level of your career, you're hired, you're new. It's like, okay, you know what you're doing. So how do I work with that? And it's pretty much learning how to take your knowledge, your skills, your talent, and your experience and improve it upon where you are and how you can make something more efficient, how you can streamline it, but without changing the model and the process of the company. If you come in and say A, B, and C needs to be changed, and that's the way they've been doing it for years, you're probably not going to get people jumping on the bandwagon. But if you come in and show that how they're doing A, B, and C is maybe costing them money, not being as efficient, they could increase sales if they tweaked it a little bit. Um, that'll help you shine. So it's just understanding how you can use your skills to improve upon things. Next, it's also a huge portion of this I learned while I was at Northrop Grumman, and it is leveraging skills and knowledge of teammates and colleagues. It doesn't matter how much work experience you have, there will always be somebody who has skills and knowledge that you don't have. And then you may be someone who has skills and knowledge that another person does not have. And at the end of the day, there's more work with less people doing the work, and there's a lot to be done, and there's only so much that can be done in a day, and you can't do it all. But when you have 5 projects on your plate and they all need to be done yesterday, and you can't do it all, that's when you need to sit back and create a plan and figure out who on my team can help me, how can we work together on this, collaborate, put a project together, and get it done on time, or maybe even ahead of schedule. It's always better to seek out help from teammates versus trying to do it on your own and then drown. And that leads me to the next point, which is when you do leverage your skills and knowledge of your teammates, it not only helps the project get done quickly and efficiently, but it also really helps positioning yourself, giving yourself visibility, especially if it's a project that is a requirement or request of a senior executive. Next, by the time you are about 10 years into your career, you should know your own SWOT analysis. If you don't know what SWOT stands for, it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I will say this is very much used in the workforce today. About a week ago, my marketing team had our day-long quarterly business review, and pretty much, I want to say about half of the day was doing a SWOT analysis on the products and programs that my team markets. And it was a full day exercise. So know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know your opportunities, and know your threats. By this point in your career, you should know what every single one of your weaknesses are, and you should have been able to turn most of those into strengths. You're still going to encounter certain weaknesses as you move forward into your career, but it's also looking at it and knowing how to not make those a weakness. Opportunities should be, going back and learning how to take your skills and make something more efficient, work with teammates. And threats are pretty much your everyday obstacles. How are you going to deal with those, whether it's personal or professional? How do you manage that stress? Really take the time to do this. And I would even recommend preparing this for an interview. There have been times where I have interviewed where someone has asked me to call out my own SWOT analysis. And the whole purpose of doing this is to showcase your strengths. We all have weaknesses and obstacles we need to overcome, and managing them and turning them into strengths will only help propel you forward. Next point I have is stay aware, be active, and seek out new opportunities. I mean this both internally and externally as well. If you've been with a company for a while and you've been in a particular position and you don't really feel like you're growing anymore, that's okay. Talk to your manager, talk to HR, try to figure out different avenues, other places in the company where you can go and grow. Companies offer all kinds of professional development. Are there courses internally and externally can you take? Are you interested in going to grad school? See if your company has a tuition reimbursement program. 9 times out of 10, a company will. Other companies will send you to 3-4 week courses and seminars. They will pay for your education. I say be active and seek out new opportunities. If you've gotten to a point where you're stagnant and you don't really feel like you're growing, and whatever position you are in the company is just not going to help you, that's okay. Knowing yourself and where you want to go personally and professionally is huge, and it's okay to say goodbye to a company. I was at Solar Turbines for maybe about 7 months, and right around 6 months, I was realizing it was not the correct company culture, business model, or department or work schedule for myself. So when I left, I had that conversation with my manager, and she entirely understood, because at the end of the day, you want to be happy where you work. You spend 90% of your time in the office with coworkers. You want to make sure it's a happy place and you enjoy going there. And then I also say seek out new opportunities, both professionally and personally. A lot of companies, including CareFusion, will have employee resource groups. They'll have clubs and organizations to get involved in. They may offer luncheons or speaking seminars. Get involved in that aspect of the company, because it'll help build your professional development side of it. And then also, if you don't want to be that entrenched within the company, definitely look externally to see what other organizations you can be a part of to help build that resume, so when you want to get to that senior VP level, you have that external opportunity and activities to balance out everything you've done for your company. And that goes right into challenging yourself. There's absolutely no way you can grow and move forward in your career if you're not staying aware, being active, and challenging yourself. If you don't challenge yourself, you will end up sitting in the same cubicle doing the same job for 20 years. And that just isn't healthy nor beneficial to anybody. And then also ask for help. It doesn't matter how old you are or how far along you are in your career. We all need help. So again, don't view asking for help as a sign of weakness, definitely a sign of strength. And with that, that pretty much takes me to the end of my presentation. So listing out my contact information here and my email address in case anyone after this has any questions, please feel free to email me. And with that, I'd like to say thank you, and then I'll hand it back over to Sarah.
Thank you very much, Danielle. That was a fantastic presentation. I'd like to open up the floor to our participants to ask any specific questions they have about the content or anything else that they'd like to ask Danielle, maybe about her career or her path or the industry she's worked in. So feel free to type in your questions. I also want to let you know that this presentation will be available online a few weeks from today. I have a question that came in. It says, what is your advice for working with people you may not get along with and have different communication styles?
It's a very, very good question, and I have definitely encountered this in every single job I have had. Again, it goes back to the respecting everyone. If you are unfortunately having someone who's not respecting you at work and you find that it's difficult to communicate with them and you're constantly butting heads, at that point, I would say pull your manager in. Um, that person might have something personal going on. It may not necessarily be directed at you. You may be unintentionally getting caught in the crossfire of something else, but always pull your manager in. They will act as a third party to solve the issue. And if that still continues to be an issue, you can always go to HR. A lot of companies will have employee resource lines that you can contact and call in anonymously if you're having an issue. But at the end of the day, it's all about, trying to mitigate that and have peace. You never want to have conflict. And I have actually also attended some seminars about communicating, working with different generations and communication styles in the workforce. So don't ever hesitate to look up those seminars and attend them on your own, or ask your manager if they wouldn't mind attending. That goes back to the learning and challenging yourself as well.
Great. Thank you, Danielle. That was a fantastic response. Are there any other questions that you would like to ask Danielle while we're still online? I see one of our alumna is typing, so we'll wait for that question. So I have another question. It says, is it appropriate to ask for growth potential at an interview?
Absolutely. That is actually one of the questions that I always have in the back of my head. What are the professional development opportunities that the company offers for their employees? Do they allow employees to travel and go to conferences? What is their take on that? And then another way you can kind of get an answer for that is when you interview someone, I also always try to ask, why are they there? What keeps them coming to work every single day? What's their favorite part about their job and the company? And coincidentally, when I asked that question to my current manager at CareFusion, her automatic response was that CareFusion really fosters the growth of their employees, and they really foster moving around internally to get various areas of experience and foster learning outside of the company as well. So I got my answer by kind of asking a completely different question, but it is always extremely relevant because, as I mentioned, you want to be happy where you are, but you also want to know that you have the ability to grow.
Thank you. That's a fantastic answer. I completely agree. I think we have one more question coming in, and then after that, we'll close. So, how do you know when you are ready to move up to another position?
That's something you kind of just learn as you are going through the workforce. And I would say it's pretty much a gut feeling. So learn to trust your gut on that. But it's also, I mean, if you feel like you're ready to handle more work or get involved in specific areas, you definitely want to communicate that to your manager and see if they're willing to create a plan or help you get through that path. If you're kind of shut down or not really, yes, if there really isn't a dialogue on that and you're not happy for it, then that could definitely be a sign. But also kind of assess where you want to go in your career. When I started at the staffing service, I had plenty of writing and PR experience, but I had zero marketing experience. So when they hired me, I was very upfront that I was only going to be there for maybe 3 or 4 years to get that marketing experience that I needed. And then from there, I'd be moving forward because that's where I knew where I wanted to go with my career. So if you have that, it's okay to put that up front. But I guess at the end of the day, you really just need to, look inside yourself, figure out where you want to go with your career, and trust your gut as well.
Well, thank you very much. That was a fantastic answer to that question. I want to thank everyone for your questions and participation. We'd also like to extend a special vote of gratitude to our presenter, Danielle Hashem. In addition, I would like to thank the Young Alumni Network's Programming Committee for putting on this webinar series. There are many ways to connect to the University of San Diego and the USD Alumni Association social media. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Flickr, and YouTube. You can also connect through in-person social and networking events in your area, such as the Torero Trek happening tomorrow, 5 to 7 p.m. in Silicon Valley. It's at a Mix in Mountain View, and it's mix and mingle with Toreros, both students and alumni. Also, we're doing a spring break intramural day for young alumni in San Diego. That's coming up on March 28th. Try out your softball skills, network, grab a beer. It'll be really nice. We also have a fantastic opportunity. It's Jamaica 10. It's the 10th anniversary of immersion trips in the Jamaica community for USD, and we're having a special Young Alumni immersion trip June 10th through 14th in 2015. So if you're available, sign up. The deadline to register for that program is March 15th. And remember, no matter where you are a Torero for life. Thank you again and have a great day.